What a jerk. Galatians chapter 5 verse 12, he says, I wish those who unsettle you would castrate themselves. And I'm going, oh, why would God allow Paul to write such an unchristlike statement? Paul wrote 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. And now he says, I wish those guys would castrate themselves. Man, lesson 2. No matter how far I come, I will always struggle with imperfections, but God still uses me in spite of myself. Amen. Hey, that gives me hope. How many times do we find ourselves, even post-conversion, if you want to call it that, where we have to deal with vestiges of our former self? You know, Paul, in spite of his petulant personality, his weaknesses, God actually uses that weakness. God said, Paul's going to be, he's going to be the apostle to the Gentiles. That's us. You know, and there was a time in Christianity when God needed that pugnacious apostle. Because you see, the legalists were creeping into the church. And they wanted to add all these Jewish rules to get it. And Paul said, oh, no way, we're not going to have that. He stood up. He was pugnacious, authoritarian, and man, he let them have it. He said, that's, you know, and if it hadn't been for the Apostle Paul, hey, the beginning of Christianity had drifted away and we'd be all stuck in Pharisaical Judaism. And that would be fun, honey. You know. But God turns it, you know what? God can use that. And I see, that's mercy. And that's grace.
And then you look at the other little side trip to this long reading we have is Ananias.
Oh, yeah.
So we fall, we have to get up. Then we get a little bit of wisdom and we want to sit back like elder statesmen and let somebody else do what we used to do. Isn't that how it goes to the top? You know, I don't know about y'all, but I know in Montana when a rattlesnake is blind, it's at its worst. Because it can't see. You know, that's just a thing of nature. And here's poor Ananias, you know, devout but knew the story. And God says, now I have something for you to do. When Ricky talked about, you know, the conversion of Paul, he knew the stories. You know, being asked to do something that's really going to challenge us. And again, when you turn around and you look at what happened with Ricky's story with the Viking, and you see the changes, there are challenges.
Mm-hmm.
There are challenges.
Yeah.
You know, here's one challenge I thought about. God has the ability to change us in the blink of an eye. Now, what happens when we walk and that's been a conversion? You think the rest that knew our personality the day before is going to think something happened? Really? Because we have a legacy, you know, of being known a certain way, and all of a sudden God pulls it to us and says, maybe that is not the best way to win people into faith and to encourage them. You're too curt, you're too hard, and you're too hard sounding to them. You scare them. It doesn't invite them in. So if we take someone that's brassy and demanding and curt and uses that voice, who has a turnaround and starts to become compassionate and inviting and wants to listen, wouldn't we be going, did you smoke something before you came to see me? Or, you know, are you on a new medication? You know, we still have to go out as a testimony of the selves we were and who we are and stand the test of time. And Ananias did. He went ahead and took it on. But I bet he was scared.
Oh, I'm sure he was.
I bet he was scared knowing who he had to entertain and heal. He was probably like, why do I want to heal this blind, mean man? I mean, come on. He probably thought, lay hands on you, I ought to slap you.
Yeah.
You know, an eye for an eye. Don't we like to throw that one out there when we want to get revenge? And yet, he did. So we also have to realize we're going to be given challenges. We're going to be asked to minister with someone who steps on your last nerve continually, that we might be taught patience and compassion. Happened to you before?
Oh, many a time.
Yes.
But let me share a final story because it really says it well with dealing with our imperfections. Robert Schuller, after he graduated from seminary, he was pastoring a small church in the suburbs of Chicago. As the custom was during those days, He would go door to door to the neighboring households to introduce himself, trying to get more people into his church. And we know Robert Schuller is, he is the one who founded the Crystal Cathedral in California. Well, anyway, so one day he knocked on the door, a woman came to the door, and he was introduced himself. All of a sudden, you heard a voice in the back of "Who is it?" And the wife said, "Oh, just some preacher." And then all of a sudden, the voice said, "Invite him in!" So sure enough, Robert Schuller goes in. He knew the moment he stepped in the living room, this guy is obviously way drunk. Beer cans strewn everywhere. And the man goes, "Well, I've never had a preacher in my house before, but I guess that shouldn't surprise me. I've never even been to church before." And Robert Schuller goes, "You've never been to church before?" He goes, "No, never had any need for it. And all you preachers are a bunch of crooks anyway." And the guy went on and on. He goes, "And by the way, I know about people in your congregation. I do business with some of them. They're crooks. They're not nice people." And he just kept going on and on and on. Now, Robert tried to interject and change the subject a little bit. This guy would not have it. And Robert Schuller tells the story that his dandruff got up a little bit. He became a little angry. And finally he couldn't take it no more, and he stood up and he said, "Well, sir, then why don't you just go to hell?" Oh. Turned around and he walked out. Immediately after a while he goes, "Oh my God, what have I done? Oh, I should have said that." 3 weeks later, he's looking over his congregation, and there sat Ray, this man that he told to go to hell. Ray sat there. For 3 months, Ray attended church every single Sunday. And at the end of the 3 months, Ray walked up to him and said, "Preacher, will you baptize me?" He goes, "I baptized him on the spot." And Ray became a very dear friend of his. Robert Schuller moved from the suburbs of Chicago to Los Angeles and started the Crystal Cathedral. Ray, upon his retirement, moved to Southern California to be involved with Robert Schuller, and he was a volunteer custodian. Robert Schuller says that if the lawn needed mowing, Ray did it. If the bathrooms needed cleaning, Ray did it. Anything that needed done, Ray did it until his body was stricken with cancer. And Robert says that he was at his bedside. Ray was dying. And Ray said, "I'm ready." And Robert said, "Oh, I know you are." He goes, "Preacher," he goes, "Rev, I'm ready to go. And I want you to know I'm going to go someplace where you told me to I'm going to the place where you told me to go. No, he goes, I'm going to where you... Well, help me out here.
He's not going where he was.
And I'm not going where you told me to go so many years ago. I thought, wow, what a story. I'm not going where you told me to go. Robert Schuller lost it. But God turned that situation around. Ray became a devout believer. And you know what? And what I thought is this, saints, I don't care what I've done. I don't care what you've done. You know, I don't care how far you think you've fallen. I don't care how many times the same weaknesses seem to crop up in your life and hit you over the head like a 2x4. You know what? God can turn it around. God can turn it around. We can do incredible things. Like, look what God did with Paul. You know, so let's not get discouraged. Let's not give up. Let's look up. Look up. Because it's never too late with God. Never.
Amen.
That's what I see there in that beautiful story of Acts, saints. Many times we look at those old stories, we read them and go, oh, that's nice. But I don't think any of us will ever fall so low like the Apostle Paul did. I don't think any of us are killing other Christians, are we? I don't think we'll go that low. But some of us may have thought we've gone pretty low. Look up. Look up. God is on our side. God can turn it around. Amen? Amen. Amen.